Welcome to Physics 2020 at Campus International High School, and this is your summer assignment. The Google class code for physics is N3DPVNJ. Make sure that you are signed up for physics on Google Classroom. I'm going to ask for you to use the link provided on Google Classroom under the summer assignment to either STEM projects and activities or force and movement experiments to pick an experiment that you can try from home this summer. You'll notice that there are lots of different experiments there. It's a nice long list from both of those lists. There are things that you might not have the access to. You might not have things like thermometers. You might not have marshmallows. You might not have straws. But I am almost certain that there is something that you can do among the materials that you do have. And let me know if you're like, is this material going to work? Can I use this material instead of what's recommended? And I'm more than happy to walk you through that process and to give you some suggestions. For example, you see this pizza box solar oven in the bottom right-hand corner. You see that there's a thermometer in there. Well, if you don't have a thermometer, you could still make the solar oven. The main components of a solar oven are the pizza box or a cardboard box, or just some cardboard, some aluminum foil, and some saran wrap. And then you can always put something else in the box itself in order to determine how warm the solar oven is getting. So you don't actually have to have all of those specific materials. Once you have chosen what you want to do, I want you to take a look at the summer assignment template that is attached on Google Classroom. There are two documents. There's the template that you're going to fill in, and then there is the terms explained document that will help you. And I'm going to briefly run through this so that you have an idea of how you are going to fill out this lab report template. This is the general lab report template that we use in the MYP in order to write lab reports. And what you will notice is as science goes on, you will continue to see these same topics and these same criteria come up again and again, because these are the things that we require you to write about in 11th and 12th grade. So we're trying to get you ready for that step. You need to start with a research question, and these projects that you are doing, so we're on criterion A, research question. For these particular topics that you are doing for these experiments, you may have to come up with a question because it's not going to provide one for you, but it's the question that you're going to be able to answer by doing this experiment. And so I want you to also come up with a hypothesis. What do you think the result of this experiment is going to be? You may already have a really good idea. It may be difficult for you to come up with a hypothesis because you're going to say, oh, well, I think it's going to work. But be specific. What is working for you? Okay. Included in your question should be, how can I change this slightly and see a different outcome? No matter what it is that you're testing, you can always change something about it. So within this research question, you should say something about what can be changed and what do you think is going to happen based upon that change. That's the fundamental piece of science that I want you to get. Discuss the general topic, and then make some sort of connection. Not only how your research question and the general topic are connected to each other, but how you are connecting to it. Why did this interest you? All right, moving on to criterion B. Come up with a repeatable method. Show me every single step that you followed, not the steps that you were supposed to follow, but what you actually did. The relevance to the research question, RQ stands for research question. I want you to say how your method is going to allow the collection of sufficient relevant data. How is it that these steps are going to allow you to collect enough data, that's numbers or words, in order to be able to answer the research question? All right, do you want to make something that looks a particular shape? Well, you're going to have, your data is going to be pictures. Make sure that your method allows for that collection of relevant pictures or relevant numbers to answer the research question. All right, we're going to skip this one. Ethics and risks. Talk about if you're using fire or something, which I don't recommend without parental supervision, but if you use something like fire, then think about, oh, how did I make sure that I wasn't going to burn the house down? How did I make sure that nobody else in my house was in danger from the experiment that I was doing? And don't perform any experiments on animals, which should not be an issue for physics. All right, criterion C, that's where you collect all your data. All right, and if you have numbers, make a data table to organize your data. If you just have pictures and words and descriptions, make sure you have all of those written out in criterion C. If you have numbers, then you're going to need to process those numbers, meaning graph them, come up with some sort of visual way to describe that data. The most difficult part for any student is the analysis. And that's where you want to show patterns in the data, if there are any patterns. All right, any facts you see, any trends that you see in the data, any connections. All right. And then finally, for criterion C, you are going to state the conclusion. So think about the hypothesis. Was your hypothesis supported, or was it refuted or rejected? Was your research question answered? So that's where you go back to criterion A. Finally, criterion D. The discussion is where you're evaluating the conclusion. And you are saying, all right, was this good data to collect? Should I have done this experiment in order to answer this question? How could I have changed it a little bit? What were some weaknesses in those methods? What were some strengths in those methods? What worked well? Where was my experiment limited by my methods? And what questions did my methods not answer? Based on those strengths, weaknesses, and limitations, you should be able to suggest some modifications. And then finally, talk about how what you did could affect society in a larger way. How could this be applied to maybe some industry, maybe some career? Think about how it applies outside of yourself and outside of the experiment. I'm not expecting this lab report to be all that long. I just want you to take a crack at trying to answer each one of these parts. It doesn't even need to be complete sentences for the purposes of the summer assignment, because really more than anything, I want you trying an experiment and I want you looking at it from these different angles, so you get a good idea of how we are going to be approaching experimentation, writing lab reports, and generally sciences for the next 3 years. So if you have any questions, please message me through Google Classroom, or if you have my email address. And understand that the earlier start, the more likely that I will be able to help you. Have a wonderful summer. I hope you stay healthy and stay safe. I'll see you soon.